Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1971, 74. We're going to eliminate the New York Mets, and what you're looking at here is last year's Mets stats. We want to show a comparison. So a year ago, look at the one-loss record. They were 27-16, but I want to say that they were 27-12. If I back up even further, they won the World Series in 2 years ago. So they're coming off a World Series championship. They trade for Willie Mays. They're 27-12, and then they get swept 4 straight in a league championship series by the Reds. And that hangover would continue. You look at this team, though. I mean, Matlack 8-3, 279. Seaver 8-5, 333. Matlack has consistently been better than Seaver for the last 3 years. But you have Cleon Jones, 339. Willie Mays, 302 with a 410 on base. Willie Mays has 9 homers, 35 RBIs. Don Clendenon, 12 homers, 40 RBIs. This is a 280 hitting New York Met team with plenty of pop, but Harrelson stealing 11 bases. You look up and down this team, you've got 5, 6, 7 guys over 265. I mean, literally only the reserve players only hit below 250. Nothing to worry about. McGraw, .61 ERA, Frizzella, the duo, the setup dude, as well as Acosta did okay. Jerry Koosman was kind of ordinary, that was about it. But a year later, this is what we have. It has been just a tremendously disappointing year. Team batting average drops 50 points to 230. ERA climbs 30 points to 362. Net runs 117-4. They gave up 126. -9 for a team that finished 14-19. And if you're counting, that's a 16-game fall off. -16 game. You know, the top hitter is a off-season acquisition, Bobby Darwin, a platoon outfielder, hitting 275. Cleon, big dip there to 269, just 3-13. But the biggest problem here, Willie Mays just got old in front of our eyes with a 221 average. Give him credit for the 30 walks and the 6 stolen bases. 385 on base with just 3 homers and 16 RBIs. And they miss Clendenon, he's gone. They miss Tommy A.G., he's gone. Cranepool, 234. It just didn't work for anybody. Wayne Garrett, 264 with a 402 on base is nice. Not enough. You know, Grody and Harrelson and all these guys in the 230s. So if you're going to be bad on offense, you got to be lights out pitching. And Matlack was in the All-Star game with a 5-1 record, and then he ran into trouble immediately thereafter. Finishes 5-4 with a very good 292 ERA. Seaver behind him, of course, 372 ERA, 6 wins. Koosman, I don't even know how this happens. How can Jerry Koosman just have 1 win this year with a 417 ERA? Acosta and McGraw, they're doing their usual stuff, but look at the low innings pitched. Just 11 and a 13. They're just not involved in enough games. It was really a nightmare for the New York Mets. The only way we can describe it, just, you know, a team plays well, they stink up the joint, and they come back the following year and play well again. We've seen this curve happen a lot in sports. And that's what the Mets have to hope for as we take a look at their stack of cards here. We're going to pull the 71 cards out. I don't know how good 71 was anyway. And now you really want to see these Mets start to assemble that 73 team that went to the World Series. They have not quite finished that assembly yet, and this might be a good time to do that. The Expos will run out of time with Mr. Rusty Stahl, but that'll help. That will certainly help this team. So we're going to take the 871 cards here. We're going to take these cards away and do an analysis of these at the end of the video. And that leaves us with the 12 guys we know are coming back for the Mets. These fellows. And they're going to go with 8 hitters and 4 pitchers. So that means they have to replace half the pitching staff. And a nice 2/3 of this offense is going to be already here, for better or for worse. Well, yeah, there's some missing pieces here. And I see some trade chips, too. We have a couple catchers. you know. We have Cranepool. No, we don't. We have Milner at first. We have this Garrido guy is like a utility player, but he can pencil in for second base for the moment. Actually, you have an infield here. So there's your catchers. Milner at first. You have Lacey can play second. Garrido can back him up. Garrett can play third. The missing component here is Bud Harrelson, who will probably be a keeper. And in your outfield, you got a couple guys, Marshall and Darwin. Really need one of these guys to play center field because Rusty Staub doesn't play center. And then you got 4 pitchers. The good news is the best pitcher you've had the last 3 years is coming back for his final year with this card. This is 72 Matlack. It's been absolutely amazing. 3 years on Strat. He'll come back with this card next year. Being joined by Kuzman, who's had some tough luck with this card. It's a very good card, but he's had some tough luck with it. Hasn't got a winning record. And look at that, he didn't. 14, 15, 284. In the bullpen, Harry Parker. If necessary, I don't think you need him to start, but he could be your number 4 starter. I doubt you'll need him. He'll stay in the bullpen most likely, as will Acosta. Righty gets righties out. But again, these teams, you remember, you could only keep 4 guys. And so that could be brutal for these Mets if they have more than that. This is how they lost Tommy A.G. and Don Clendenon in the last 2 off seasons. They could only keep 4, and each guy was the 5th free agent. So let's see if that same problem happens this time in the Mets. All right, folks, this is the look at the Mets. 8 guys of a team between World Series appearances 69 and 73. We're kind of in a little bit in the middle area, trying to transition. Guys like AG and Clendenon are gone. Cleon Jones is getting older. Rusty Staub has not arrived yet. Let's take a look. We're going to look at Bud Harrelson first off. On the keeper list, most certainly will be a keeper. And really, this is all about defense. So in 71, he is a Gold Glover, so he's going to be a 1 shortstop in the card we just had. So we have 72 to 75, and frankly, I don't really care too much about the offense. I just want to know, where is the Gold Glove? Where is the 1 range? The 1 range, or 2 with a very low range. The best defensive performance is what I want out of a shortstop who's between 28 and 31 years old. Should be in his prime here. Statistically, as a hitter, his best year is 73 with a 258 average and 29th in MVP voting. So that's the best year offensively. These are the best year defensively as well. That's what we really care about. He is a keeper. He's Bud Harrelson. There's no reason to change history and have him off the team. The Mets benefit greatly by great defensive play out of their shortstop and helping their pitching staff. All right, next guy, Cleon Jones, and this one could be tricky, folks. This could be tricky. He is no longer in the rarefied air of hitting as he once was. He was a tremendous hitter. But he's getting up there now. So the 69, he had the magical year hitting 340. 7th in MVP voting. We skipped 70 and we went to 71. This is the card we just used, of course. 319 with an 856 OPS. Then after that, it's just okay, isn't it? It's just nothing special. They made their bed. They had a choice really between Clendenon, Cleon Jones, and AG over the last 3 years, and they went with Cleon. And it statistically made sense, but now it doesn't make sense. He's also like Bud Harrelson, 29 to 32 years old. He's a Met here. He does play for the White Sox at 76. Gets a cup of coffee there. He can be probably, I would say, he's one of the better platoon options. You could platoon him with a Milner. You could platoon him with a Cranepool. Platoon him with a Dave Marshall. Or you could actually put him on waivers, which would be a stunning move. Or you could trade him. So yeah, that's where we are with Cleon. He is no longer beholden to the Mets, and they're starting to look at other options. It could very well be that Cleon goes and Rusty Staub takes his spot. So Cleon, we're going to call him a keeper for now because he's a Met throughout this timeline. But he could be a trade. Could very well be a trade. I expect the Mets, as a World Series team to always have too many guys they want to keep. Speaking of that, we got Ed Cranepool coming up next. Another guy, same thing. Too many of these corner, outfield, first base, DH types. We really need a center fielder. We really need a second baseman, is what we really need, and that's not where they have guys. So here is Cranepool. He hit 280, 786 OPS, and 71. He's still very good. He's younger than the other guys. He's with the Mets the entire time here. And look at this. In 74, he's going to hit you 300. So clearly, he would be, of the three guys, the guy that give you the best offensive production with that 74 year. Part-time role, probably in a platoon, or in 75, same thing. 300 hitting, the Mets, 300 hitters, you need all those you can get. So he's a keeper, most likely in the platoon, just against right-handed pitching. It really means that John Milner and Cranepool are taking up the same roster spot. And maybe you trade Milner. Maybe you trade Milner to make room for Rusty Staub on this team. All right, next guy. Here he is, Willie Mays. And now you finally have reason to consider letting Willie go, because 71 is the last big year for Willie. Here we go. Let's take a look. 40 years old. What more do you want? He was a 2 in center field defensively. That's amazing. How many 40-year-old center fielders do you know who are a 2 with a -2 arm? Willie Mays was. But in 72, his OPS drops 100 points because he's 41 years old, folks. You know, he was still with the Giants through this time before going to the Mets. We could actually return him to the Giants to retire or play in a platoon. But I think, and frankly, retiring the guy might make the most sense, so you don't have to bring this card into the league. Is there any other team you want him to play for other than the San Francisco New York Giants or the New York Mets? No. So I don't know what to say here. This is a really tough. This is a Hall of Famer. I'd like to have him participate in the league moving forward. 72. It's an 800 OPS is nothing to sneeze at. That should at least work in a platoon, you would think. But is it worth a keeper? We're going to put him as a keeper for now, which is a max out. So now we know we're going to have to start trading guys. We have 4 keepers. We haven't even gotten to the pitchers yet. And it's just going to get worse from here on out, folks. This is really bad news here, as we have, you know, this is the obvious no-brainer. Seaver, the best player on the team here. And frankly, he's still a young pup, too. I mean, he's only 26 to 29 years old. And you've got the 73 Cy Young season here. Led the league in whip. So, yeah. Wonderful miss there for Tom Seaver. He's a keeper. Everybody gets a check. It's like Oprah. Tom Seaver gets a check. So that's 5 keepers now. Somebody is not going to be kept by the Mets. Next player is Gary Gentry. And this was a little disappointing that we couldn't get this guy more work. We had his 71 year. Remember, Gentry pitched in the 69 World Series. Got a win against the Orioles in that one. 70 was okay. 71, he pitches on 3 days rest. This was the card we just used. He's only 24 years old, but he didn't get to pitch much in the league as he was a number 4 man behind Seaver, Matlack, and Kuzman. So now he's here. He's still effective for the Mets and the Braves. So he is worth a keeper. Of course, they don't have spots. But this player's a keeper. He's better than a waivered player, though. We know he can get waivers. Waiving him, you don't get any value back for the Mets. I tell you, this is really tough news for the Mets. So I'm going to put him as a keeper. So it's ridiculous now. So we know we're going to have to make several trades. It's getting worse, folks. Next guy, Danny Frizzella. The Mets simply cannot keep all these players. They're going to lose more, so they might have another bad year next year because they're losing some great players. Danny Frizzella here. $1.99 ERA with a card we just used and a 116 whip. He is with the Mets, Braves, Padres, so you can see that the Mets had that same conundrum. They had to move on from him. He does get waivers, but this dude's a keeper as well. So all 7 guys they want to keep. And lastly, who do you think, folks? Tug McGraw. Another keeper. And before you say Philadelphia, forget it. No way. They can't do that. They can't let him get to the Phillies this soon in the decade. You see, he doesn't arrive until 75. That season is up. It would be a remarkable trade if they let Philadelphia get that 75 card away from the Mets. The Mets don't have a closer on this roster anyway. They have Acosta and Harry Parker. They need a lefty, so it may as well be McGraw. And probably the 72 season, where he's just as good as he is in 71. So he's a keeper. Now, if we're just going to do this by Hall of Fame or Ring of Honor, we know McGraw is definitely a keeper. So we're going to say we're going to trade Frizzella. We're going to trade Gentry. We're keeping Seaver. We're keeping Cranepool. And these other guys, oh, we're keeping Harrelson. That's right. We're keeping Harrelson, Cranepool. We're going to trade Cleon Jones, and we're going to trade Willie Mays, or put him on waivers. That's where the Mets are right now. Wow. Devastating. But the fantastic news for my league is I got 8 quality players that are going to continue on, and that means that the retire pool is going to shrink even more, which is really good news. Because remember, we're playing these first edition super expanded sets from 71 to 74. They don't have as many extra players as the reissues would, and we have 32 baseball teams instead of 24. So thank you, New York Mets, for allowing your talent to be spread throughout baseball. This is the first time I've done an analysis like that and had a team have 8 guys all come up in the same off season, and you can only bring 4 back. So I'm just going to put Bud Harrelson with an exclamation point. Cranepool, he's a 300 hitter, folks. I'll put a question mark there because he's a platoon player. But obviously, Tom Seaver with 3 exclamation points, and same with McGraw. Boy, you're talking about one of the most important off seasons. So we know they're going to trade for Rusty Staub. Well, this is going to be very tricky how they do this. Let's go up top to the league math now. We have 10 teams finishing off. And our math is 40 keepers, 20 waves, and 20 retires. That's what 10 teams are supposed to have. This is what we have. 43 keepers. So we're +3 in keepers, +1 in waivers, and -4 in retires. So that's excellent. That means that some of these kept players will end up on waivers. At this moment it's +3 and then +1. One way of looking at it easier would just be to do it like this. So 40202 is a perfect math. The Mets are the 10th team to be eliminated. So that that became this number, 402020. This number here, the easiest way to look at it is draw a line after the first 2 digits and the next 2 digits. That reflects the number of players in each of these columns. So 43, we're supposed to have 40, we have 43 in this column. This number in the middle here, 20 and 21, that's this middle column. We have 1 extra guy there. And the third column, the column we like the least, retired guys. Remember, only 64 guys to be retired. We're supposed to have 20, we only have 16 thus far. The obvious thing too is that in theory the better teams are still playing. So you would think the better teams would have fewer retired players because they're better. But we have a very strange season where we've been retiring the Dodgers, the Reds, and now the Mets. So we're getting some very quality players who don't want to retire show up in this analysis. I gotta look at that again one more time, because this is a sea change moment for the carryover league. I've never had a team with 8 guys they want to keep before in one off season. That is a, you think it's good news. It will be good news, because you are getting Tug McGraw, and you are getting Tom Seaver, and you're getting Bud Harrelson as a one shortstop, you believe, and possibly Cranepool. It could be that Cranepool gets traded for Rusty Staub. But you're going to say goodbye to the 69 Mets of Cleon Jones. You're going to say goodbye to the Say Hey Kid, and Gentry and Frizzella were important players. They're going to be gone too. That's how it happens in baseball. Can't keep everybody. It's almost like we have a salary cap in this league. It's a little different than Major League Baseball. It's sort of set up more like football than it is baseball. But enough of that rambling along like this. Thanks for checking out this Eliminating the New York Mets video. We'll see you next time.